I'd like to continue now teaching about our shepherd, Jesus Christ. I just wanted to say something about how the shepherd becomes recognizable to the sheep. You know, as the shepherd cares for the sheep, they become familiar with his voice. They will not go to an unfamiliar voice, and they will not listen to an unfamiliar voice. An unfamiliar voice to them is a robber and a thief, according to St. John 10 and 1. John 10:10 says, "The thief cometh not before to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly." The original text says it like this: I came that they would have life and they would have abundance. So he wraps it up and continues it into a sentence to prove that not only will you have life, but it's going to be in abundance. So catch a hold of this revelation from John 10:11, where he says, I am the good shepherd. The good shepherd giveth his life for the sheep. So he is not just someone who's taking care of the sheep, but he died to take care of the sheep. Now, in John 10:12, if someone is hired to take care of sheep, if they see a wolf coming, they're going to leave the sheep, flee, and the wolf will catch them and scatter the sheep. I have a question. Is the church scattered today? Are we living in scattered days? Is the church divided? Are the sheep, have they gone astray? Are there many winds and doctrines and different beliefs that have divided us as a church? I would answer that question with a yes. And I would say that when Jesus healed blind Bartimaeus in Mark 10, verses 46 through 52, if you look at verse 52, you'll see that Jesus, after healing him, said, Go thy way. Thy faith hath made thee whole. And immediately he received his sight and followed Jesus in the way. I want to talk about the way. What is the way? Well, the church was formed in Acts 2. Acts 2:42 says, and they continued steadfastly in the apostles' doctrine and in fellowship and in breaking of bread and in prayers. Verse 43, it says, and many wonders and signs were done by the apostles. Verse 44, and all that believed were together and they had all things common. So what happened? What is going on today that has brought so much division? Verses 45 and 47 goes on to explain how they sold their possessions and they gave goods to each other and they met each other's needs. They continued daily, with one accord in the temple, breaking bread from house to house, sharing food with singleness of heart, praising God and having favor with all people. And the Lord added to the church daily. This was the state of the church in the beginning. The church in its beginning stage. This is the way it was. So what happened? Now, in the book of Acts, chapter 9, verse 2, it says Paul desired of a high priest to get a letter to Damascus, to the synagogue, that he found, if he found any in the way, whether they were men or women, so that he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. What happened to Paul? Why was Paul, whose name at that time was Saul, improperly discerning the way that God was working and moving through Jesus Christ? I know that Saul was attached to the Abrahamic covenant. So were many at that time. So because of that covenant, they couldn't see what God was doing. They couldn't tell that there was a shift. They couldn't see that the Messiah was on hand. So if he wanted to bind either men or women and bring them to Jerusalem before the high priest, those that were found in that way, what way? Again, I ask. This church of the early days is the same church that we are today. Paul was one of the early persecutors of the church, whose name at that time was Saul. Persecution has always been there and is still here now. So what time are we living in? What is God doing in this time of the church in its existence today? What time is it? Acts 19:9 says, "But when divers were heartened and believed not, but spoke evil of that way." There we have it again. What way? Let's dig into this a little deeper. There's many scriptures in Acts that talks about that way. But we need to know what that way is, how we got so far from it, and how we can get back. Look for me in the next video. Pray without ceasing. God loves you.